Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at Sony A7S3. A7S3 is a high-end video-centric mirrorless camera with very impressive video specs, including some of the features that were only available in 5-figure cameras just a couple of months ago. In this video we will take a look at the real-world performance of A7S3, and I will try to help you decide whether you should get one. This video will mainly be intended for content creators. I will briefly talk about ProRes RAW and log shooting, but I will make a separate video about that. Sony A7S3 basically uses a customized Gen 4 body. It is still a very compact camera, especially when we consider the video specs. It is noticeably thicker than A7 III for example, but it only weighs 700 grams, so it is still a very portable camera. The build quality is generally very good. It uses a magnesium frame of course, and it feels very solid overall. Fortunately, Sony has also switched to proper port doors in Gen 4 bodies. Weather sealing has also been updated. So far, I haven't heard about or experienced any issues with that. A7S3 uses a brand new 12 megapixel backside illuminated full frame sensor. The main point of using low-resolution sensor in this case is to lower the processing requirements and therefore allow faster readout. This allows it to shoot high frame rate video, it reduces rolling shutter, and minimizes heat production. I was a little bit worried about the level of detail that it will be able to capture in comparison with downsampled video. The look in comparison to downsampled video is a bit different. A7S3 footage looks a lot like Arri Alexa. Downsampled 6K to 4K video is more detailed, but the A7S3 looks more natural or filmic if you will. You can adjust the look by applying sharpening in post or in camera. The difference after the sharpening is quite minor. I personally like this look and I don't think that anybody will complain about the lack of details in A7S3 footage. Regarding the codecs, A7S3 can shoot 4K UHD video in 10-bit 422 using all intra or long GOP encoding. The bitrate goes up to 250 megabits per second in 25p and 500 megabits per second in 50p. My preferred way of shooting internally is to use all intra codec combined with PP8 and gamma change to Cine 4. This picture profile works great even with 8-bit codec on A7 III. On A7S3 it is just pure greatness. I think that it is the best compromise between the color grading options, ease of color grading, and the file size out of all codecs in any camera that I've ever used. This way you can take advantage of S-Gamut 3 Cine color space without experiencing the difficulties associated with S-Log 3 workflow. It is easy to color grade, but you can still push it very far thanks to that 10-bit codec. You can also use it with ISO 100, which means that you will get even less noise. 250 megabits per second for 25p all-intra video is not the highest bitrate out there, but I don't really miss higher bitrates in any way. Long GOP is actually so good nowadays that if you want to save hard drive space, it is completely fine to use. A7S III is also the first camera that offers 4K 50p and 60p with no compromises. You can shoot it with no crop and with the same image quality that you would get with 24 or 25p. It is very similar with 100 and 120p. The only limitation is that you can't shoot 100 and 120p with all intra encoding. I do have 3 complaints regarding the internal recording though. The first one is that there is no way to shoot 4096 by 2160 4K DCI internally. The second complaint is that it is not possible to shoot 25p video in XAVC-HS 4K file format. That is possible with 24p in NTSC, so I hope that it will be fixed. The third complaint is that you can only shoot 4K with all Intra if you use CF Express cards. This is an artificial software limitation, so I hope that Sony will reconsider this when other manufacturers start selling CF Express Type A cards. That brings us to external recording. A7S3 can output 4.2K RAW up to 60 frames per second through HDMI. That can be recorded in ProRes RAW using Atomos Ninja V. The first thing that you need to know about ProRes RAW is that it utilizes log workflow. The reason for that is basically to let you take full advantage of the dynamic range. It also doesn't support some features such as lens corrections, active stabilization, or extended ISO. Autofocus still works though. Those who know what they are doing can get pretty incredible results using A7S3 and ProRes RAW. This dynamic range is definitely a level above any kind of internal recording. Overall, I can say that the A7S3 is finally the camera that can do everything that I ever asked for, except for DCI internal recording, so I am very happy with the video specs. A7S cameras are also known for their low light performance. The amount of noise at ISO 3200 is very low. ISO 6400 is still usable for most applications. The noise is clearly visible at ISO 12800, but it would be usable in majority of real-world situations. Usable ISO 6400 in this scene is a great result. Overall, I am very happy with the low light performance. Due to the 12 megapixel sensor, I don't think that anybody will buy the A7S3 mainly for stills. Despite that, it is more than sufficient for filmmakers who need to occasionally take some stills. 12 megapixels is still enough for basically any kind of digital publishing. The dynamic range in the RAW files is also outstanding. The A7S3 actually has a lot going for it when it comes to stills shooting. A7S3 uses Sony's latest autofocus system with 759 phase detection points and 425 contrast detection points. It also uses the latest software, which means that it is basically flawless. As expected, the focus acquisition is instant and 100% reliable in any conditions, so there is not much more to say there. Of course, it has all of the latest features, including real-time eye autofocus in video. I think that this could convince even more professionals to try autofocus, because it really is very reliable. Unlike older Sony cameras, here you have 7 steps for autofocus speed and 5 for responsiveness, which is now called Shift Sense. This can completely change the behavior of autofocus. I definitely recommend trying these out. Overall, I am very happy with the autofocus and I have no complaints here whatsoever. A7S3 uses 5.5 stop in-body image stabilization. I would say that the efficiency of this IBIS unit is somewhere between A7 III and Fuji X-T4. That is in my opinion a very good result considering the specs of A7S3 and the body size. The stabilization behaves very predictably and there is no warping. I would say that it is sufficient for static shots up to about 75mm. Besides that, the A7S3 also has active mode, which combines in-body image stabilization and digital stabilization. The additional crop in active mode is about 1.1 times, which is quite acceptable. It works very well and it definitely makes a big difference. More interesting option for me is to use gyro data. As I've explained in my A7C review, I think that this is the future of stabilization. A7S3 can store the gyro data within the normal video files, and these can be utilized to stabilize the footage using Catalyst Browse software. At the moment, it works very well with wide lenses. I especially like using it to additionally stabilize gimbal footage. It is very easy to achieve flying camera effect using this method. Regarding the handling, there are some significant changes with the Gen 4 bodies. First of all, A7S3 has quite a large and deep grip. It is well shaped and it will be a welcome change for users with larger hands. I actually still like the Gen 3 grip the most, but I definitely don't mind A7S3 grip. The buttons are also much more raised. Thanks to current weather in Central Europe, I can confirm that it significantly improves handling when you are wearing gloves. The placement of the buttons and the dials is identical to A7 III, which is a good thing in my opinion. Basically, the only change is the relocation of the video recording button, but I have relocated that to C1, which makes more sense in my opinion. I also appreciate the lock on exposure compensation dial. Overall, I can say that I like the handling and I don't really have any complaints. The most significant upgrade in terms of the handling is the new user interface. First of all, you can finally operate everything using the touchscreen. That includes the function menu, which is otherwise the same as in older cameras, which is good. The main menu is completely new. It uses vertical layout and it is very well structured. Being a long-term Sony user, I got used to it basically immediately. For example, the button settings are now correctly placed in the setup menu, and the autofocus transition speed is no longer 11 pages away from focus mode setting. Overall, big thumbs up for the user interface on A7S3. The display uses a 3-inch panel with 1.44 million dots. It is completely fine to use. The sharpness and the brightness is sufficient, but it is an average panel by 2021 standards. I think that a camera such as this one deserves a 2.1 million dot panel. The display is also fully rotating. Unlike on the A7C, here I don't approve of this choice. Full-size HDMI and intended use with external monitor make the rotating screen even less suitable for A7S3. Having said that, it is not a deal breaker for me and I can live with it. On the other hand, the Viewfinder is fantastic. It uses 9.44 million dot panel and huge 0.9 times magnification. The Viewfinder is incredibly sharp, large, and simply a pure joy to look into. It is by far the best viewfinder that I've ever seen. Despite that the A7S3 is a video camera, I have been using the viewfinder a lot just because it is so great. A7S3 has 2 combined card slots. Both can take UHS 2 SD cards and the new CF Express Type A cards. I like the new CF Express A cards a lot because they are much smaller than Type B cards and they still support speeds up to 1000 megabytes per second. The only disadvantage is that you can only get them from Sony at the moment and they are very expensive. In A7S3 you need them to shoot any kind of all-intra video and also to shoot 100 and 120p video. I've also been using this MRW G2 card reader, which works with 10 gigabits per second USB-C connection. The file transfers with this reader are blazing fast, so I've definitely enjoyed that. A7S3 uses NP-FZ100 batteries just like other Sony full-frame cameras. CIPA rating is 600 shots, which is very solid. I was able to get 2 hours and 35 minutes of continuous 4K recording on a single charge using the highest internal recording settings. That is an excellent result. I have concluded this test at 21 degrees Celsius and the camera was barely warm at the end. I wasn't able to test the overheating any further yet because the outside temperature during my testing was around 0 degrees. To sum up, I can say that the hype was real this time. Sony A7 III is an excellent video camera. The first thing that I like is the RE-style filmic look provided by 12 megapixel full-frame sensor. The video specs are basically everything that we could ask for except the internal DCI recording. I especially like the 10-bit 422 all-intra 250 megabits per second H.264 codec. In combination with Picture Profile 8 and Cine 4 Gamma, it is the best footage for a short turnaround workflow that I've ever tested. External RAW recording gives advanced users even more options and flexibility. As expected, the autofocus is basically perfect. I also appreciate usability upgrades such as full-size HDMI, raised buttons, dial locks, and so on. New user interface with full touch support and well-structured main menu is a huge step forward for Sony users. The Viewfinder on A7S3 is by far the best that I've ever tested. As usual, Sony was able to pack all of this technology into a very small body weighing just 700 grams. Besides the missing DCI, there are basically just two things that I don't like about the A7S3. The display is just average, and I don't think that rotating screen belongs on a camera such as this one. It is also unfortunate that it is not possible to record all intra using SD cards due to artificial software limitation. Other than that, A7S3 is a great 4K camera, and I highly recommend it basically to all filmmakers who can utilize at least a sensible part of its potential. It is especially suitable for documentary formats and any kind of short turnaround workflow. I also recommend it as a money no object 4K camera for content creators with a high budget. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.